So this whole year, my main goal has been to minimize my setup as much as possible. I feel like this definitely has been my goal for the past couple of years, but more and more I know what I want. Obviously, it takes 10,000 times doing something wrong to do it right. I'm like a firm believer of that. You have to make mistakes to know what works and doesn't work for you. Everybody's workflow is different. What inspires you might not inspire somebody else. So making music is a different journey for everyone, and I have learned that, at least for me, the least I have, like when it comes to gear, I'm way more productive. So for the last couple of years, my setup has been pretty much the same, even though I do make these videos and I get a lot of access to cool gear and I get to make videos with it. My setup has remained quite the same for the past, I want to say like 2.5 years or so, which is the Yamaha Montage, the Machine, and the SP404. I switched out the Machine maybe about a year ago for the MPC Live, but it was still the same routing. All of my sounds were coming from the Montage, then that was going into the SP404 for effects, and everything was being sequenced with the MPC. And I have had a lot of fun with that setup, and I am pretty comfortable with all those devices, but at some point it just started getting stale in the way that I make music. I feel like I'm just doing the same chord progressions over and over again, and I'm not really like challenging myself like I was when I was using hardware. But then again, the thing that made me get away from having a actual like Dawless setup, like a big Dawless setup with a bunch of synthesizers and a sequencer and drum machines, is that I hate like dealing with cables, MIDI cables, audio cables, power cables. Like there's so much that comes with having one of those type of setups, things coming in and out, like being switched out, always missing a piece of something, right? And that's what kind of wanted me to go back and just make it as simple as possible. So I've been trying to make it as simple as possible, so I started thinking, okay, maybe I should just go back to the DAW. I know, like, blasphemy. So I started making music on the Push 2 again, and I really tried to convince myself that like the VSTs sound good, but as much as I try, like, there's just no going back. Once you hear what a real synthesizer sounds like, once you have the actual experience of tweaking knobs and messing with the decay of certain things and not having to stare at a screen, like there's just no going back to making music that way. So if you're just starting off with music production and you don't have any synthesizers and you know you have Ableton and a laptop and a Push 2, do yourself a favor and just don't do it. Like, don't get into hardware, don't get into synthesizers, because one, it's very expensive. Two, it's gonna take you a while to figure out your setup because there's just so many options. With Ableton, it's like, okay, you have this, you have to learn this is what you're gonna get, right? When it comes to hardware, there's so many different ways of making music, there's so many tools, so many drum machine sequencers. It's gonna be overwhelming for sure. And also expensive, time consuming. You're gonna get more done making music in the DAW. That being said, is it fun? Like, which one is more fun? I don't wanna spend another second of my life staring at a screen messing with a mouse. Like, editing these videos is enough. Like, I'm not trying to do anything else on my computer besides check my email real quick. I don't want a screen in my face. Like, I know I'm not the only one. So making music with hardware, with real instruments, is really the only option now because, you know, I've seen the light. After you hear like an analog synth in person, you're like, okay, my goodness, everyone should at least be exposed to this once in their life. Like, it's a beautiful thing. If you have been making music for a while on the computer and then you're getting stale of it because in reality, virtual instruments just don't sound that good. And yes, I mean, I really tried, guys. Like, I'm being serious, like completely serious here. Like, I'm like trying to convince myself, I'm like, oh my god, it sounds so good. Yes, you could make a good patch. Yes, you could find a good preset, but it just does not have the soul of a real instrument. And unless you have a real instrument to compare it with, not just in terms of sound, even though that is the main thing, but just of interacting with it. Like, do you really want to be clicking a mouse? Do you really want to be setting MIDI parameters for this and that? Like, that's just extra. That's something that stops you from the flow of creation, and that's something that's important to me. Like, I don't want anything that distracts me from just creating without interruptions. When you're making music that way, it's like you have to be pausing, composing, pausing, moving, arranging, composing. It's just not very enjoyable. So if you have been making music this way and you want something different, definitely, you know, get yourself one synthesizer first. Start with one and then see what works for you. Maybe a groove box if that's what you're trying to get into. But what I have realized for me, like I said, I don't like too many pieces. I don't like too much hardware. So I actually went rogue a couple days ago and bought 2 IntelliGel 7U 104 HP cases. Yeah, so that totally happened. So yeah, I'm going all into Eurorack because I hate audio cables, I hate MIDI cables, I hate power cables. I can live with like just patch cables, you know? Like I'm just so tired, guys. My drawers, this is ridiculous. And I've organized this so many times, but it just gets so out of hand. And then even down here, the spaghetti, like this looks pretty good right now compared to how it can get sometimes just from moving things around. And I'm just so over it. Honestly, I'm just over gear, to be honest with you guys. I'm not gonna stop like reviewing gear if like the opportunity comes about to like check out something cool on the channel. I'll definitely keep doing that. But when it comes to how I make music, I'm going all modular, and I'm gonna tell you why. So reason number one is gonna be because it's confined. It's a confined space. You have this much space to work with depending on your case size, okay? So once that fills up, you have to make compromises. When you have gear, you can just keep getting and getting, you know, endless MIDI chains. Get yourself 3 quadra throughs. Next thing you know, you have a sequencer with 16 synthesizers hanging in your walls that you can't even reach because they're all the way down here, okay? Just having that space, knowing that this is all you have to work with because this is what you've committed to a case size, that's number one. Number two, like I said, the mess. Like I'm tired of MIDI cables, audio cables, power cables, adapters. Like I'm just tired of it. I just want a simple life. I know I'm not the only one. Who thumbs up if you want a simple life? Anything that I can automate and make my life simpler, that's what I want. There's just something about modular that makes me feel like my life is just a little more organized because it is all there. Like the decisions that I have to make depend on my system, and in reality you're creating a tiny orchestra. That's how I feel. Like it's your instrument. It's really a beautiful thing. When I had the Intelligio 84 HP 7U, I just treated it like, okay, this is my tiny little modular case, and then I still have like, you know, my synthesizers and my groove boxes and this and that. So like I have modular, I have this and that. So every time that I put a module in that case, I had to sacrifice a module out. So like I could only have one sequencer, you know, I can only have like a certain amount of effects because of space. So making the decision to get this giant case, it's not like crazy giant, but it is definitely the biggest case I've had. And I'm super excited about it because like this is definitely the dream case for me. And it's the first time I don't have to feel too guilty about owning an expensive module or having 2 sequencers, because you guys know I love the Varigate 4 Plus, and recently the Endorphin's ground control has found a place in my heart as well. So being able to build this system without constantly thinking, okay, something has to be omitted, I have to sacrifice this for this because of space. Now I don't have to do that. Now I can have a full drum case in my Eurorack. Up until now, I've only been using self-contained drum modules like the ALM's Squid Sample or the Endorphin's Queen of Pentacles, and those modules are cool. They definitely save a lot of space. But when you have like control over decay of your kick and your snare and your hats and like all these other parameters, like CV control parameters, not only CV control parameters, but actual knobs for like drums. Like you have a whole drum machine that you can switch out. You don't like the sound? Okay, switch it out for another sound. Like that's gonna be super fun. And it's gonna be the first time that I've seriously done that in Eurorack, like really focused on having fun with my drums, because they've always been such an afterthought because of that, because like I don't have space. So I have a few new modules coming in. I'm super excited to finally have like a whole drum Eurorack case that I can work with. Not like the whole case is gonna be drums, but you know what I'm saying. Like I have 8 gates on the Endorphin's ground control. It's gonna be dope. My voices are gonna remain still the same because I know what I like in my system. Like I love rings, I love clouds. There's certain sounds that I know I like. And that's the good thing with modular. Like it's gonna take you a minute to figure out what you like. But even though like I'm building this giant case, most of these modules I've already had or have had some type of interaction with. So it's not just like, hey, I'm just gonna, you know, get a bunch of modules and hopefully it works out. No, like this has been like my foundation of my system for a really long time, but now I can add more effects, I can add VCAs, finally, you know, LFOs and all that type of stuff, things that I had to sacrifice because of space. But going all modular, like that's gonna be a whole different thing. So yeah, so I'm still gonna keep my SP404. I love my SP404 and the MK2, but yeah, I think I'm done with like all this other extra gear, to be honest with you guys. I'm just over it. I'm over it. I'm not pleased by the sound. I mean, I know people argue against this, but I just do not like the sound of like the MPC Live. It just does not sound good. Comparing it to like real sounding instrument with like analog circuitry and like real stuff going on, once you hear things like that, it's very hard to go back to something like that. So, you know, don't do it to yourself if you're not trying to spend money, because it definitely is an expensive hobby. I'm blessed enough to even be in the position where I can invest in something like this, because it really is an investment. And that's the cool thing about this hobby. all the gear hobby, you know, yes, you win some, you lose some, but if you're smart about your shopping, you can go all in and go all out and, you know, not lose out on a lot of money. Like, it's not like a makeup habit or like some crazy habit where you have to spend money and you get nothing in return. Like, a synthesizer hobby is something tangible, like, you know, play with it, have fun with it. If you don't like it, sell it. Hopefully you got it cheap, hopefully you got a good deal on it. If not, maybe you lost a few bucks on it, but you still had some time with it to say that you got your money's worth out of it. That's the cool thing about this hobby. That, like, if for whatever reason I'm in a financial situation where I need to sell my modular, I can, you know? It's harder with like DIY modules and that type of stuff, but you know, like classic modules, like those are always gonna sell. And even like rings and clouds and like classic ones are starting to become rare. Like, I sold my rings and then I had a really hard time finding an original rings. I got one, I paid more than I am proud to admit, but it happens, you know, you win some, you lose some. I've also gotten very cheap modules. So, you know, you just gotta find a good balance, know when to negotiate, know when not to negotiate. Like, if it's literally the only thing in stock, you're either gonna grab it or somebody else is. So something is only worth as much as you're willing to pay for it. So just know like what that cap is for you. Something else that I really like about modular is that it really sucks you into the instrument. Like, when you're making music on it, that's the only thing that is there, like in front of you. It's the only thing, even if you're not being musically productive, like making, you know, recording music, you're still having fun with it. And there's no reason not to be recording your modular jams. Like, you know, just press record wherever it is that you're recording. I'm still gonna record into Ableton, into one stereo track. That's how I've been doing it for a really long time. But just press record because you never know what's gonna happen with modular. And once it happens, like, that could be it. Like, that could be the only time that you made that sound. And like, that's the cool thing about modular. It's such a live instrument, you know, it's like a living creature that is always evolving, that is always surprising you. Sometimes you create sounds that you're like, how does this happen? Like, how did I even do this? This is beautiful. And again, it's your instrument, like you're building it. You don't like that sequencer? Switch it out. You don't like how those drums sounds? Switch them out. Keep trying until you figure out what works for you. I'm really excited to like finally incorporate my guitar into the Eurorack. We have not done that on this channel, and I have 2 guitars and a ukulele in the closet. So I'm really excited to finally truly bring the guitar into the modular system, figure out how we can loop. Like, we're gonna figure this out together because there's really not even that many videos. I've had trouble finding a video of just someone looping guitar with a Eurorack. So we're gonna figure it out because we're going all into Eurorack. So I have a few more videos on hardware pieces that I need to finish. I'm gonna make a video on the Poly tracker and a few other pieces I have in my closet. But at the same time, I'm gonna be building my system. My case isn't here yet, but the modules are coming. So that's it for today, guys. Thanks for watching this video if you made it this far. We're about to hit 50,000 subscribers. It only took 6 years. But hey, everything's a work in progress. Guys, I've been doing this for 6 years. You've literally seen me age. You know, if you've been here since the beginning, you've seen me age. I'm 30 this year. I'm gonna be 30, not yet, but I'm almost 30. Already got some white hairs coming in. I just hope y'all ready. I'm fine with it. I'm fine with it. It's really humbling to go back and look at myself and see myself on camera and see how much more comfortable I am being myself now. Because, you know, that's something that comes with time. Obviously, the more you do something, the better you get at it, right? Like playing keyboards. So go do that. Catch you guys later. Psh. Brought to you by DistroKid. DistroKid has a few ways of enhancing your music for the best listener experience. If you head to the Goodies tab and click Enhance Your Music, you can do things like add lyrics, add credits to list the people that helped you with your music, and even get some feedback from Dave, their AI music analyst bot. This is the future. If you're planning on signing up, use the code below and save 7%.